All right. Well, welcome back to another episode here on the Enneagram at Work podcast. Today is fun. We don't have a lot of guests as much as we used to, and so today is a special episode because we are joined by Brenda Brown, who is a leadership coach and actually does some leadership coaching here at Enneagram MBA for us. She is certified in the Enneagram, has studied the Enneagram for a long time. We'll let her add anything else to that. But today she is also bringing her Enneagram type 4 experience to the conversation as we talk about how a type 4 might get off track at work, our type 4 derailers in this series. And Brenda, I'll just bring you in. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, it's always a pleasure to be with you, Sarah.
Well, Brenda and I, we just got back from seeing one another out in Washington, D.C. At the Association for Talent Development. And so we're going to be doing a recap of some key takeaways in a future episode. So you'll have to come back and listen to that. But today we're continuing on in the series and we're jumping into our type 4 derailers. And we're going to have Brenda here to kind of gut check us, question some of this, and then add some real life experiences, examples potentially to this episode. So, as a reminder, our type fours are striving to feel unique, and they tend to want to be one of a kind when they are walking into a room. They might focus on the ambiance, the vibe. They're interested in expressing themselves, wanting to feel understood. They are known for being creative, but I always like to be careful here because any type can be creative. Just because you're a type 4 doesn't mean you hold all the creativity, but they can be really creative. They're usually really in touch with how they're feeling. They tend to be really self-aware, introspective. And we've talked about type threes, like to be seen as successful. Type fours tend to like to be seen and appreciated for their authentic selves, their uniqueness. Brenda, I'm going to kick it over to you. Is there anything that you would add or any piece of that really resonated with you as you were going through your type 4 typing journey?
They can't see me, but I'm just smiling. I'm glad I can laugh at myself at this point. But what came up for me is a little story that I would love to share if it's okay, because I think this would probably give us a place to really anchor. When I was in my very first job after college, I don't know, I guess I had been there a few months, but I'd built a relationship with one of the trainers, and I remember being in a hallway and him giving me this feedback, and he said, you know, when somebody asks you how you are, and he was the nicest man, and he just delivered it with, you can pretty much guess what I'm going to say there. He's like, you don't need to tell them. They don't really want to know. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm probably blind really to how much I might have shared my emotions in my earlier career days. I think I remember that advice. Obviously it was, kind of struck me. So it helped me to adapt.
Yes. Oh, that
So,
is that's some type 4 energy, right? Right
hmm
there. I have a friend who is a newly discovered 4. She had typed herself as a 6 actually for a long, long time. And on the authentic piece, she has said, "Oh my gosh, understanding this 4-ness versus the 6 that I thought that I was, this makes so much sense why I sometimes struggle with my sales messaging because it just doesn't always feel authentic. Like there's what I'm supposed to say and kind of what I should say, but she said, I don't know, it just feels so inauthentic to say the best, bookkeeper or the best, whatever her industry is." She's like, and then sales has always felt so hard because I want to be truthful and authentic. And, there's some things maybe I should or shouldn't say. So I thought, I didn't know if you had ever ran into
Yeah,
that.
definitely. And I think what you're bringing up is there, in the Enneagram world and anything with the words that we use, they can mean different things to different people. So I never really resonated with a lot of the four words, which was why I was also mistyped. And that authenticity, the words, that rings so much more true, and the meaning of things versus trying to be special or unique. And I certainly never considered myself creative. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense hearing that story. And I also thought I was a six. That was the very first kind of panel I was on, and I got thrown off. They were like, "You don't worry
Oh
enough
my
about everything. You worry more about relationships and other things."
God.
But yeah, it's kind of funny.
Okay, and then you thought that you were a two for a moment,
I
right?
Yeah, for a long moment. Yes, I went
Okay.
through my whole first coaching program. A lot of us did typed. I mean, self mistyped. It wasn't anybody's fault, just not really seeing clearly, what really this was about. And yeah, I definitely have a lot of two in me. I was a very much a helper and a doer in my earlier days, and I think it was incredibly helpful to my to navigating through my life. And I'm also going to use navigating. We're going to maybe not get to instinctual bias work today, but I am a navigating four, so my four
Uh-huh.
may sound different than a preserving four or transmitting four. So just to say that too.
Yeah, that's helpful because I think I have ran into so many people as we do who maybe started out thinking they're one type and then end up another. And part of that is those instinctual biases, kind of
Yeah.
the undercurrent, and can cause you to look like or express that for maybe similar to a two in this situation or whatever it might be. So, yeah, we won't get into that today. But if you are, am I a four or something else? There may be some things to dig into there. Okay, so we are talking about getting off track at work, and we all have our things. And sometimes as I'm going through these lists, I'm like, oh wow, how's this type going to feel about hearing about this? I feel it when I was reading the sevens. But again, it's like we all have our things, and this isn't to say that in this case all fours do all of these. And it's not to say the fours are the only ones that struggle with this. I can see something I struggle with in almost all of these derailers. So this is definitely for our type four teammates, but also it might be for it's hopefully for all of us to kind of reflect on, question, to think about, oh, how might this show up for me? Or how might I be a more supportive manager or teammate knowing this about my type four teammate? So all right. So are you ready? We'll just kind of kick it back and forth, Brenda, and you
Yeah.
tell me what you would add, what we got wrong, and we'll just kind of go through these. We got five, I believe. Okay. So our derailers, to cite our source, come from the Awareness to Action Enneagram, and the first derailer has to do with rebelling for rebellion's sake. And this might look like the type four feeling angry or frustrated because maybe they don't feel as unique as they wanted to or had intended to, and they may act out, rebelling against authority or the status quo. It's like, oh, this proven strategy, or we've always done it this way. And sometimes I think this could also lead to maybe some of the mistyping, because I don't know that we always think about a four necessarily getting angry or
Yeah.
frustrated. So how does this land for you? What resonates? What doesn't? Anything you would add to this one, Brenda?
I definitely sat with that a bit because I didn't see it initially. And as I did kind of go back to it, I recognized that mine might not be so loud of a rebellion, but I definitely had been called a contrarian before more than one time. And there's definitely a part of me that wants to kind of fight against the status quo. So that really does kind of ring true. And yeah, ones, fours, and sevens can all have some of that frustration that comes out,
Yes.
and it's a flavor of anger for sure. It's a boundary or a something that we're fighting for. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
about feeling special per se, as it is in my maybe with my navigating instinct. Again, it's more about the greater good or whatever or the team. Um, you know,
Yeah, I have seen this or heard about this from fours who will just say, and I think this could be a little bit of some seven energy too, where it's like, can we try something new? Can we do it a new way? And somebody might say, well, this is just the way that we do it. We've always done it. It works. Let's not try and, reinvent the wheel or whatever. There's a little bit of some seven too in there, but that's how I hear, that's what I think of whenever I see this. And sometimes, again, I think when it's dialed in, it could be a really powerful strength on a
Mm.
team. But then maybe if it's you're wanting to kind of rebel against every status quo
Yeah.
proven method, it could be kind of a time drain.
Yeah. I mean, if you're working in an industry or a place where you're a creative force or something, I can see how that could get really out of hand or painful. But if you're working on a team, which I did from the beginning of my first career, I was on a team and that it wouldn't have worked. So I think I adjusted my external expression anyway of my
Yeah.
frustration, and I really was looking more long term, like what are we working towards and let's see what we can do to get there. And I might
Yes.
be being generous to my younger self. I may not have been so graceful with that. I recognize that. So,
Oh, well, again, we all have our things.
yep.
We all have our things. So the second derailer here that our type fours may notice in themselves, I think is a little similar, is making something different just for the sake of being different. So, like so many of these, it's like, oh well, of course that makes sense that that could potentially be a struggle or an obstacle if your core strategy is striving to feel unique.
Mm.
That is central to our type fours. They may look for ways to do things differently that can really benefit the team, but sometimes it might be just for the sake of making it different, whether it adds value or not, which sometimes can slow things down, complicate things, do more than is needed. Um, Anything in that you see in yourself or just your experience with force?
I might start to sound like I'm repeating myself, but again, it's like that kind of depending on where you are. If you're working I think in your 20s, especially in 30s, like in teams and when what's allowed in that kind of might have adapted how I am, how I see the, force. But even in the force that I've worked with, I think the word unique kind of does still cause some like, really, is it because I don't know. I'm 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 definitely aware that I like to kind of shake things up sometimes. And I mean, I think that line to one and two is real in this like getting like I'm inner considering a lot. That's what I'm recognizing. So it can be really frustrating to other people and it could slow people down. That energy can be really helpful too when you spot something that's wrong and you want to kind of fight for it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I always say this, I always bring this example up. So some of you may have heard this more than once. Some of you, maybe this is your first time, but I would say that they say, whoever they is, they say that Steve Jobs was most likely a type four. And I think these first two that we've covered are things that I could see in him that were strengths. Now, as the visionary leader of a company, that makes sense. Um, and I also think to your point where it's like, well, when you have to work with the team,
Mm.
this maybe can't be dialed up to Steve Jobs level 10 at all times. And so you gotta figure out the dial.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm recognizing like in my own experience for my own business, my website, I it took me forever to even put one up, and I recognized as I was landing on my type, it was because I wanted it to be special. I wanted it to really reflect
Yeah.
authentically who I was, what I was offering. So it took a long time, and it's one page, and I've been, working with somebody recently to build it out, but yeah, that struggle's real. So when you said it like that, for sure, that reminds me that, yeah,
Yeah,
that's there.
yeah. That's there. That is there. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
The
yeah.
third one, the third derailer is insistence on being right. They can get defensive about their position, their vision on something. They can get frustrated or angry, which we've talked about, towards others' opinions or ways of doing things. So before I jump in on this one, what comes up for you, Brenda? Do you see this?
I have my book in front of me and I wrote a note, maybe question mark. I mean, I'm trying to like feel into that one through different lenses of different places I've worked and different relationships I've had. I just don't think that would last in the organizations I've worked in for sure. And I can certainly argue. I can hold my position. So but I don't tend to be negative. Like that is if it doesn't, I don't tend to show, I'll say that. I don't show my negativity. I certainly have negativity. I have a negativity bias for sure. So, I think maybe that's maybe more learned skill, but either way, I think I have for sure worked with fours and it is something that fours would struggle with. So I want to make sure that's clear that it might not be my struggle, at least today, but it is certainly something to be aware of. And it is not specifically just for the type four. We all have our
Yeah.
inner critics and our ways that we defend. So,
Yes. Well, and this is
yeah.
interesting with the one, because I
Mm-hmm.
think, this is their reputation for that they
Yep.
always need to be right. And that, the one and the four are connected. So there's
Mm-hmm.
some things in there. I also, as a seven, can relate to some of this, and not necessarily being right, but having something go the way that I had envisioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can get I can get really frustrated or mad that it wasn't as good, or you know beautiful or fun or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the thing was, that I had originally planned. So again, that the 1, 4, and 7 we don't talk a lot about with the awareness to action approach, but there is Enneagram theory out there that this is a grouping that can
Mm-hmm.
struggle with frustration and anger. So this makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah. And that word insistence on being right, I think for me, I look at that as I have a persistence. Like I'm patient and I will keep, my aim, I will keep working and I'll find a different way to do it or try to, reach the goal, do the thing, you know.
Yeah.
So so that's probably part of that.
Okay. Okay. Um, let's look at Derailer 4. So Derailer 4 is listed as drama.
Mm.
So it's that they say that fours can display excessive emotion at times, sometimes making problems out to be greater than they really are.
Mm.
What are your thoughts and feelings on that, Brenda?
For sure, I would say of the clients, and I'll put my stuff out there first. I 100% have drama in that's part of my temperament and what I work with as far as my own maturity and whatnot, and my nervous system because it's just reactionary stuff. So, but I would say at this point, I've been working with this for a while. I would say it's more inner drama, but it's real. I mean,
Mhm.
it's there. I can spend a lot of time finding myself in some kind of, considering of something. So it may not be public or out there, but for sure. And the good news is if you are able to see it and you can work with somebody to kind of like, there's ways to help yourself settle and accept and allow these things to be there, and you don't have to fight so much. There isn't so much drama. So I've just learned
Yeah.
how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're making some great points about it's, depending on the role, the environment that you're in, how much professional development, personal growth work that you've done, you may or may not struggle with these or as intensely as maybe somebody else. The other thing that I was going to say here is this is the one where I think I have to see what 5 is, but this is the one so far that I see cause the most friction or potential friction in the workplace, because a four may be experiencing just, hey, I'm telling you about my day. Or you asked me how I was, I'm telling you how I was. Or just, hey, I'm providing some context here. Where on the receiving end, it might feel like emotionally overwhelming, especially to some specific types. I'm thinking of like a five, maybe, or a three might think, oh gosh, we don't have time, we don't have the time to get into this. And so, drama or just kind of that emotional intensity, which again can be such a gift because it's like, okay, good. Thank God. I don't have to, try and figure out what this person really wants or needs or how they're really feeling. Um, and then on the other end, at times it may feel experiencing it emotionally overwhelming.
Yeah,
Um,
and I
Go ahead.
could I add, Sarah, one thing too
Yeah.
with this drama, like with that kind of inner world that the four is really familiar with, that's where it connects a lot in my experience, and people have thought I might be a seven because of the way that I can like I vision things. So that's the one of the gifts of it, when it's kind of channeled and given, a structure like that. But when it's left
Yes.
alone, it's as a unchecked, it could be really problematic.
Yeah, with your, yeah, tapping into some of that self-control, rational, logical mind with the one, using that to bring those creative
Yeah,
ideas to life.
yeah.
Oh. Okay, and then the last one, I forgot about this one. So this is around comparison. And I don't think that fours hold are the only one that hold this as a derailer, but the description for this one for our fours is that they sometimes can struggle with not feeling appreciated and seen for their special qualities, especially when others are, quote unquote, getting all the credit, or at least they appear to be getting all the credit or lucky breaks. This can lead to a feeling that something is inherently wrong with them. I know that there is talk about how the type one is known for their inner critic, but they might think, well, if I just put my head down and work harder, I can fix it. Where sometimes they'll talk about the four also struggling with a pretty intense inner critic, but sometimes our fours may just think, I'm just inherently, not good enough. Like no matter what I do, I'll just kind of always, I won't ever measure up, which is really tragic. So sad and tragic. What would you add to this one, Brenda?
You summed it up really well. I mean, I think the life of being, having the inner doubt, that everyone has is one thing, and then just the all the inward kind of gazing that we do, that natural proclivity to do that, and then that awareness to be comparing yourself to others and having an inner jealousy. So all of that when you're downplaying what you're doing. And then, again, like when I was thinking I was a two, I thought I was a really healthy two, and I was actually like not a two, and I was an average maybe level four, and maybe unhealthy in certain aspects because I didn't even wasn't even aware of some of the gifts that I had really pushed away, that I had just disowned. So there was a lot of work to do and kind of seeing all that. So that's a really important piece. I don't, nobody wants to really be called out for being to holding on to resentment. But it's probably there for all of us to work on. But I do
Yeah.
think fours have, we may hold on to some of the feelings of things. That's a that's a
Yeah.
fact. So
Somebody who was talking about I was talking about somebody who had previously for years and years thought that they were a six, and then recently, like, holy cow, over the course of a year they were like, I'm a four, dang it. um she said one of the things that had always resonated with her with the six was the kind of the anxiety and the self-doubt and the questioning that
Mhm.
sixes can struggle with. And then she said something, and maybe you can help me say this better, because I'm not saying it how she said. I'm just going to be able to share the general idea. But she had said something like, but when I think about the four, it's not so much like situational worry or anxiety or overthinking. It's really about like what's going on inside me. Like, did I compare? I mean, kind of this idea of like comparison. How do I measure up? And so she said some of those qualities were just more about herself, that happened in her head most of the time, which I know is kind of true for sixes in certain situations. But anything you can add to that, or kind of, is that making sense what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say?
I think in my experience too, my best friend is a six, and she's openly shares in what she struggles with. So we've been friends for 25 years or so. So I can see how I'm a comfort to her in a lot of ways,
Mm.
because I can be with her when she's afraid, and she can see how she's a comfort to me, because she's so logical and thoughtful about all the things, and she's so bright, and she sees how I'm a feeler, and I am, and we're all thinkers, we're all feelers, whatever. But I'm a deep feeler. I go for the feelings. Like
Hmm.
so we are very different, but I've learned from her. She's a big napper. I've learned to be a napper. I've been, helping, nourish my body more. Um, it's been a great friendship, and I don't doubt we'll be friends forever. It's just we've been learning and growing together, and so, yeah, I think they're very similar in a lot of ways, and you could really be, and it's fine if you find yourself not sure, just keep exploring them, and eventually it'll
Yeah.
become clear.
Yeah. And it usually is the type that makes you want to
Mm,
go, dang it.
yeah,
I don't want to be this type.
yeah,
Ah, okay. So these are just some of the ways that our type fours can get off track. Again, I think regardless of your type, you may resonate with one or more of these that you have struggled with, or maybe currently struggling with yourself. Let's talk a little bit about getting back on track. And I'd be curious maybe if you've used these ideas, Brenda, and how they've worked, or anything else you would suggest. So one of the ways to get back on track is collaborating with others and letting ordinary people influence you. And I
mm,
think if I'm a four, though, my initial thought is like, why would I ever do that? But what maybe is a way to kind of change the narrative? And what do you think what does this mean to you?
yeah. I think for me as a coach, like, it's really important to meet people where they are, and that it usually is a pain point. So we go with where the pain is, and that's where. So if it is a person, it could just be as simple as for a four or anyone to be mindful about their morning coffee, to just kind of slow down and get clear. What is your aim today? Like, what are you looking to accomplish? How do you want to feel at the end of the day? Like, whatever so yeah, I think that is a certainly a practice to consider.
Yeah. And I think that it may help too in thinking that you could do more visionary things, or put more creativity into a few things that really mean a lot to you, if you're not trying to make something one of a kind, unique, everything you put out,
Yeah,
every email you write, every project you work on.
right.
um
Yeah, the
yeah.
pain is like you procrastinate, or the pain is you can't quite function because this person at work's causing you, this grief, and it's just taking you out of your ability to perform your job. Like, whatever that is, like, we start there, but slowing down to look at that is usually the key step, the
Yeah,
awareness,
just so, yeah,
but it
taking
can't
some
be just
inventory.
awareness to be able to make a difference. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but that's where it starts. Just kind
Yep.
of reflecting and becoming aware.
Mhm.
Okay, what do you think about this one? The other getting back on track tip is not to linger too long on the past or the pain or the ideal fantasy. Many times the best thing to do is just get up and keep moving.
Oh yeah. 100%. I think that's what's gotten me where I am right now. I was fortunate to have people around me that had that kind of energy and ability, and it helped me be more like that when I was younger, and it served me in my life. I love my 7 partnerships and friendships, and in my client work, like, when anyone can kind of access that kind of energy to bring into their friendship, like that's supportive, like it's not like you're not like bypassing the pain that's here too, but like to get through the day, to get through your whatever you need to do, like yes, we can't just sit in that stuff. And I don't what I've done for myself is to invite people to be real with me if they notice it in me in some way. So, and I encourage my clients to do the same with the people they trust. So,
Yeah, yes, with people that you trust, but that you
mm,
have given the invitation to. Because what I'll also hear is the flip side of this, where fours are like, please never tell me to get over something
right.
before I'm ready to get over it. So we got to be careful on
Yeah.
our being a supportive teammate here with this one.
Yeah.
All right, when intense and negative emotions overtake you, there is a moment maybe where you could stop and just pause and ask, what could I do to control these? So I know, I think we all can have some really intense emotions. And,
Mm.
in the heat of a moment, it is hard to control. But what sort of things do you personally do, or what sort of exercises or things do you recommend to your type 4 clients in these situations?
Well, this one of the reasons I think when you and I are so aligned with the awareness to action approach because of the what we learned with and built on what I already knew about the brain and the mind and how, just how much bias we have and clear thinking, things like that, that I had very limited knowledge. And then I still have limited knowledge, but I know enough now to not trust my thoughts and myself and my memory and all these things that give us an ability to have some laughter too in our days. Like that's a big part of it. But so I
Mm.
came from a family of people who my dad always made silly jokes and tried to help us laugh and through the hard times. So I bring that as much as I can into my spaces and encourage people to do the same without laughing at anyone, but to bring some lightness. But the quickest path is beyond awareness is in the body. And if you can practice just becoming more aware of something that you can, your fingertips, something that can kind of help you um, remind you that this body's running the show most of the time, and just to connect with that, and it will take you quickly out of your thoughts if you can do that before it gets, takes off, and then all of a sudden your nervous system's totally running the show. But if you that's the key to kind of checking in with yourself. Whenever knowing myself as a 4 and my ability to kind of be like feeling and being maybe stuck in my inner world, I am always checking in with to make sure I'm here. If I'm not, and when I'm in a coaching engagement, that's different. Like we're very intentional. It's, there's less distractions, et cetera. But when I'm just in a conversation out in the wild or whatever, and I just encourage people to start that practice to be able to notice, where they are, or do you even know where you are? Like, have you heard what the person said? If you catch yourself lost, and that's not just a 4 thing, um,
No.
but it is important for practice to be able to be connected to the ground in some way, to feel your feet or to touch your fingers or something. That's just one way.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
This one, the last one, is maybe a little bit tied to that one, but also I can see sevens struggling. Again, all of us probably, but definitely sevens. And this one is a reminder to recognize all that you do have. So many times it's easy to focus on what's missing, what could be better, but be intentional
Mm.
about seeing what's present.
Yeah.
I think you're good at this. I was going to say, do you think you're good at this? But I do think you're good at this. So, anything you would add to how to practice this more?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this maybe the other day. I have just in my life have had the great privilege of having people who were able to give me some guidance on on a path. So I learned kind of how to surrender, as what I couldn't control. It's like surrender prayer, like surrender what you can't control, and what is mine to do. So, that's really what I'm always trying to do is to kind of like let go whatever I can't control and to, really be here to do what I need to do.
Yeah. As we conclude our derailer for the type 4 episode, is there anything I wanted to ask? Is there anything that you would want to say to your fellow fours who might be listening? And then is there anything and or anything you would want to say to the rest of us to maybe anything we misunderstand about a 4 that we could do to work better with a 4 at work? Any messages for either one of those groups or both?
Mm. The most important advice that I was ever given is to know that everything that is here for us can be, something we're going through or we're growing through. And just to recognize if you are questioning whether you're for or whatever, there's a way to get clear on that. Because the sooner you kind of are clear, you can kind of own the things. Um, at least in my experience, that's what's happened for me and with the people I'm working with. But what I would encourage everyone to do if you are considering you're a 4 and you're questioning things or even a lot of 6s too, like recognize if that's in your nature, that can be a gift and that can also keep you from the work. So just have humility, to really have humility and to make it fun and, you know, enjoy the journey. Like that's really it. I know that's not 4 specific, but as a 4 and one who I do care deeply about this world, this planet, the people, and all the things but I am grateful that, seek help. Like there's always help. Like that's the thing. We can't do it by ourselves. Like if you can at least reach out to somebody to kind of get the support to, be moving in a direction of less suffering, that would be the first thing I would say to do.
Yes, less suffer less.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
uh, well,
Oh,
I appreciate you kind of bringing the some real world experience, both with your personal experience and that of your coaching clients. So, if any fellow 4s or anybody who has a question about a 4 wants to reach out and connect with you, where would be the best place?
well, you can look. I think my information's on your website, but also I'm on LinkedIn or my website is wisdomloves.com, wisdomloves.com, or you can Google Brenda Brown Enneagram coaching, something like that. You'll find me. It's
Yeah.
it's out there. One thing I did not mention though that is I think important. I think I alluded to it, but in the workplace especially, I think 4s don't always look like 4s. So that's why I think it's important. And I'm so grateful we had this conversation because a lot of my mistyping was because of the ways that I had worked in organizations over the years and had to work, and maybe even in my family system, whatever. But I was really twoing. You weren't seeing the 4ing, but the twoing was right there. And I also thought I had a very strong 1, a lot of 1 in me. But as we know, this 4 thing is real. So, but thank you for the opportunity to really just be here and share that. And I hope some people will find, their path as a 4 and not be so um as scared of it as I was. I was like, that's the
Yeah.
last thing I want to be. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is. Well, and
mhm,
I would say the least common types that I see in the workplace are 5s, 7s, and 4s.
yeah.
And it makes sense. I have a funny meme for the 4 that talks about like they need their work to be deeply meaningful. for it to be something sustainable for them. And the little meme says, I wasn't built for desk work. And I think that as we are, maybe working next to or managing a four, or even if you are a four, just to know that about yourself. And that's okay, because there are lots of ways, jobs out there that, you aren't like sitting at a computer every day putting in the same numbers in a spreadsheet. For some people that feels really reliable and
Hmm.
safe, and I like to know what to expect. But for a four, unless it's tied to something deeply meaningful, that's going to be hard work to do. And so some of the jobs just in the culture of the workday, it makes sense maybe why there aren't as many fours. But also, to your point, maybe also part of that is
Yeah.
because they're not seeing that four piece, because they're
Right.
having to kind of mold to a certain role or culture at work.
Yeah, I think we're very flexible. I think fours can show up in a lot of ways that, at least in my experience, I've been surprised at some of the people I worked with that ended up identifying with four. And maybe I'm biased because I am, a four for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
nobody
Well,
wants to be a four, so I don't know. Maybe, well, some people do, I guess. But it's, it was really kind of a yeeks for me. So,
Well,
any
well,
rate,
just know, Force, that we are gonna continue to work on
yay!
understanding you, asking questions, not assuming we understand you. And I appreciate you sharing your experience. Definitely reach out, and Brenda does help us with our individual coaching, leadership
Mm.
coaching. I think maybe some typing coaching here in the future. So you'll get to maybe meet her face to face at some point down the road. So, with that, Brenda, thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next Derailer.
Thanks, Sarah.